Thank you. Hope everybody can hear me. My name's Alan Rogansky. I'm a principal and partner with Lisa Gray at GOA Architecture in New Haven, Connecticut. And I also direct the Yale Building Lab here in New Haven at Yale University School of Architecture, and have the good fortune also to travel to Germany to serve as an innovation lab network director at Bauhaus Earth in Berlin, Germany, working on many of the topics that you all have explored through this project. I just wanted to share some thoughts, some remarks on the competition brief that we constructed and some of the sort of motivations and concerns that underpin it. The title, Reforming the Anthropocene, is a kind of grand term or phrase, but I think what it really is trying to capture is not only the global nature, planetary nature of the problems that we face today in our society and in the sort of natural ecosystems that cover the earth, but to try to understand actually the agency of architects who are really the specifiers of enormous amounts of material, and how our decisions can perhaps change the trajectory that we're currently on as we race toward a planetary crisis. So we chose the idea of a social, material, technical institution in the city or the country in many cases, of a community material bank and makerspace. And it was really through this that we thought you all could best really explore your agency, your decision-making, and your process around these really fundamental questions that are existential in nature for all of us. So I want to just note a couple of points within that brief that you all have seen and studied, hopefully. One is system thinking, or maybe better put, systemic thinking. So thinking across scales, across disciplines, sectors, to try to understand all of the things that we touch beyond the typical system boundaries of an architectural design project. And the second part of that is not only system thinking and analysis, but the idea of regeneration through making, the idea that we can improve global ecosystems, ameliorate climatic conditions that are increasingly dangerous through the process of making buildings. So solving the problem of human need in housing and cities, but also solving beyond those things for ecosystem health and climate restoration. And so ecological impacts are a really important topic here, but also the benefits that we might glean from those decisions that we make. And there's, of course, necessarily, because we're talking about human settlement and possibly resource equity, the disposition of resources and socioeconomic enfranchisement through this kinds of projects. And then I think thinking in terms of scale, obviously we wanted you to focus on locality, and the locality with which you're all familiar, which is where you live or work or go to school. But beyond that, to think about the catchment areas of material and the material sheds that flow into the places where we work. And so that's really about bio and circular regionality. But finally, even though we may not really be able to touch all corners of the globe, that we think globally, and we try to understand how the lessons that we learn in one place might be applicable, adaptable to other places without imposing a particular methodology or process. And so in the end, I think as we face a kind of critical threshold of planetary health and stability, what many climate scientists call the climate tipping point, and we recognize the enormous role of the building sector, both in its production of buildings, the operation of buildings, and finally the demolition and ideally reuse of building components and parts, that we're thinking really beyond sustainability, that we're thinking about the way in which the active building can be a lever for climate restoration and ecosystem rehabilitation. And so with that, I'd really like to turn it over to our jury, our excellent jury, whom I've really enjoyed working with today, to talk about the specific prizes.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to start. I'm Rosalie Ginevro, an adjunct faculty member at Columbia University and the Cooper Union, but formerly I was the longtime executive director of the Architectural League of New York. Today, I am very happy to congratulate the winner of this year's Merit Award, Randy Crandon, who is a student at Harvard's Graduate School of Design, for his project Where the Road Ends, Rubber Prototypes for Land and Sea. Randy's faculty advisor is Luis Callejas. This year's jury, as juries sometimes do, has chosen to recognize a project that colors outside the lines of the program brief because we were so struck by the expansive extrapolation of the program that Randy brought to his project. The premise of Where the Road Ends is that sea level rise and climate change will force more interaction in daily life at the edge of the ocean. Randy writes that his proposal seeks to engage more populations with maritime culture, and it underscores that the oceans are a new frontier for engagement and inhabitation. In doing that, it takes on the fact that societies around the world are grappling with how to deal with waste, including one of the most ubiquitous components of the waste we create, tires. He writes, this project reinvents rubber as a building material. Randy cites his project in Norway, a country that already takes great advantage of its coast. He notes the steep approaches to many coastal sites and the existing network of ferries that serves the coast. Randy riffs from there, proposing creating rubber highway guardrails with a walkway on top for those steep approaches to the ferry sites. He proposes a rubber boat shed and workshop, a rubber cruising sailboat, a floating rubber field station. The jury recognizes that the recyclability of tires into rubber ready for reuse is not currently an available technology. Tires are complicated multi-material objects. But our attention was captured by the unexpectedness of the sites and uses that Randy proposed. Reversing the damage we've caused to the planet by reinventing the ways we live and rethinking how to use all the objects and massive materials we've already put into the world will require unleashed flights of imagination as well as rigorous work to act on what we already know we can do. So congratulations again, Randy. Would anybody else like to say anything about this project? Alan.
Alan Rogansky here. Randy, you're on. Congratulations. We were really excited to see the range of invention that you brought to the problem of a reuse of any material, let alone rubber, and that this serves as a kind of prototype thinking for all of the different ways that we can distribute these unused or waste materials back into the kind of consumer product groups that we're going to eventually consume. So congratulations also for the really beautiful presentation of the work.
It's Lisa Gray, DOA principal. The jury absolutely loved the presentation. There's a range of studies that you did, and the cohesiveness and clarity and beauty and sort of fun of the work that you shared with us was something that really struck us all. So although you strayed outside some of the precepts of the brief, we think we found the project utterly successful and powerful. So congratulations.
And now I'm going to turn it, this is Rosalie again. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael, who will present the third prize.
Thank you. Well, we're excited to announce third prize. This is a traveling prize for $5,000, which equates to about 1 month abroad. And we're thrilled to award this to Lyriel Todd from Georgia Institute of Technology. Congratulations, Lyriel, and faculty advisor Bryce Truitt. This project was entitled Ode. And what the jury found compelling was a keen reading of both the site and its place in the larger context of Atlanta and Grove Park. Set on a quarry that is compromised, and also tying into the broader context of and looking at specifically this graphic, this beautiful timeline that framed the project around larger ideas of the first public housing project of 1936, all the way to the last public housing project in Atlanta. And we found through this sensitive reading of the site that it brought a sense of beauty to the very light touch of an architectural solution. And the idea here that we read was taking away some of the walls to open it up to the park beyond. And the interventions were really quite poetic. This idea of this kind of rebar catwalk trellis that you would be invited up to so that you could walk down it and view all the aspects of the working yard beyond. We felt that was an interesting way to explore this existing building, and the use of biodegradable elements like burlap to create these facades was also commendable. And a really beautiful presentation. The drawings we loved, really well laid out, and simply demonstrated a real command of a challenging building. We talked about this one a lot, so I'll open it up to the jury to share their thoughts.
Hi, this is Marlon Blackwell. Again, congratulations. This project we were impressed with too is how much you did with so little. There is this very strategic, almost surgical series of elements and interventions that takes a relatively banal structure, which I think that was part of the premise of the project. But what could you do with it that would actually elevate it and take it out of the banal into that realm of possible wonder in a rather instrumental industrial building? And here we think you've been extremely successful in achieving that with so little. And it really demonstrates that architecture very often can happen where less is truly more. And I think you've certainly achieved that here. So congratulations. Rosalie.
Hi, this is Rosalie again. I wanted to say that we looked at a number of projects on this site, and something we really appreciated from the way all of the projects approached this was the serious and intense site investigation, looking at what had happened on this site over time, both in terms of human history and material history. It provided a very important, I mean, each project emphasized different aspects of those histories, but it provided a very important deepening to the projects that we saw.
It's Michael again. I think I also wanted to mention the travel statement aspect of this submission communicated the fact that you did visit the site, you did kind of appreciate its locality, and you learned lessons every time that you went there. And that's something when, for your month of travel that we look forward to working with you to identify a program, a study abroad that will let you experience the world, but bring it back to help advance your early career. Okay. All right. Second prize.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rashida Ng. I'm an architect and educator at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. It's my pleasure, my honor to have served on this jury, and my pleasure to announce this year's second place winner. The second place award goes to Lyceum Zhao from the University of Hawaii at Manoa for the project Make Upcycle Visible. The faculty advisor for this project is Clark Llewellyn. Congratulations. In its own words, this project transforms the previously invisible professional processes of material recycling, processing, and reuse into a visible and accessible resource, effectively reorganizing the emerging market for recycled materials. The jury very much appreciated its practical and fresh approach. Make Upcycle Visible is true to the project brief written by Ray Organsky. It includes a well-considered analysis of the site location, research about the specific localized context in Hawaii, and it was responsive to this context, and it feels, in a word, implementable, achievable. Sited in an idle tilt-up concrete factory, the project is very much about pulling everyday people into a place where they can interact with the byproducts of our consumer culture. It's a comprehensive scheme of public engagement and material reprocess. We commend it for its graphics and techniques of representation. It is at once graphic novel, technical description, and deep research. And it also includes a really compelling entrepreneurial narrative. We found it to be innovative, including a proposal that it integrates digital and physical aspects within the buildings and spaces envisioned. And lastly, I think I would say it spoke with a voice of optimism, and it was really inspirational to us as a proposal to a really complex set of questions, really understanding how you can respond to the brief put forward. With that, I'd love to invite any of my colleagues on the jury to add additional comments.
It's Lisa Gray. We loved the project. As Rashida said, we loved its optimism. We loved the means of communication. And it does feel as though it's a project that takes on the reality of big box buildings that have proliferated across the country and posits a scenario for reusing those buildings, and also not only increasing the public's awareness of the availability of recycled materials, but also makes them available across various scales to folks who are interacting with their own built environments. So there's a kind of joy to the drawings and a sort of modesty to the precept that we appreciated.
Hi, Marlon Blackwell here. I just also wanted to compliment you as well on this notion of cross-programming the site. It one's both a civic venture and, of course, multi-purpose, multi-types of events that can occur here, as well as something that is more an everyday kind of workspace. And so you're really cross-programming, and I think creating a certain kind of urban vitality in this place, and something again that was rather underutilized and banal and such. And we really felt like you made a place out of not much. And I think that's really good, but you didn't do it with a single program. You took a mission and then you kind of atomized that further into multiple programs. And I think it's the collateral economies that could come out of that as well that also makes this a very optimistic project. Congratulations.
Hi, Alan Organsky, back again with congratulations to you on this project. I want to really emphasize something that Rashida and Lisa have already said, which is that the messaging of architectural projects or visions is such an important piece of what we do, visualizing, but also pitching in a way, and I say that in the most positive sense, pitching in a way an idea and using different means and sort of techniques to do that. And so from the sort of graphic novel / cartoon boards to these sort of quite happy drawings about a subject that could otherwise be considered sort of dire and scary, I think you're offering a real optimistic future, as we've all felt and said. So I want to congratulate you on the innovation of communication as well as visualization, like just how you strategize that. I think that was really powerful.
All right. So drum roll. So first prize. My name is again, Marlon Blackwell. I'm the principal of Marlon Blackwell Architects, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm also the E. Fay Jones Distinguished Professor and former department head at the University of Arkansas's Fay Jones School of Architecture and Design. So I have the honor and privilege of announcing the first prize, a $15,000 prize with 3 months of travel. And first prize goes to Alejandro Rodriguez, the University of Florida, for back of house in New Bedford, Massachusetts. His faculty advisor is Jeffrey Carney. Congratulations. This is a back of house is a repurposing center for decommissioned turbine parts from the nearby Vineyard Wind Energy Company, and also for local vessels and similar equipment, and as well provides an industrial park and flexible exhibition and assembly spaces to the city of New Bedford. And this is a city and a community that's in a kind of conflicted transition between its traditional industry based in fishing, and formerly before that, even whaling, to a more wind energy based industry. And as a jury, we were really impressed with the open, speculative nature of the project, designed as a civic intervention that acts as a literal and figurative bridge, bringing together disparate citizens and user groups from the community, from fishermen to warehouse workers to residents to visitors and more. And the architecture is at once sophisticated, bold, and contextual. And it's dedicated in many ways to the order of change that sustains communities for generations, and essentially is a regeneration center, hopeful and generous, that is in its place, of the place, for the place, and as well productively slightly out of place. And we loved the presentation and the premise, the argument that you made for this project. And it, again, doesn't seek to provide the answers. It really provides more questions, but basically acts as a fulcrum in a way of bringing people together in the community, and let's see what happens. And it kind of has that sort of openness about it, which we really enjoyed. And as well, enjoyed too reading your proposal for travel. I think the idea of being in the Netherlands for 3 months and discovering all things Dutch, but really understanding what a community is and a community that you admire. And so understanding both the positives of that community, I think, as well as the particularly unseen challenges of that community, the underbelly, getting below the surface and being there in one place for 3 months, I think was going to provide you that opportunity that what should further reaffirm your stated love of communities in themselves, and hopefully your trajectory in building community as you evolve as an architect in the fullest sense of the word. So with that, I will turn over to Rashida. I think she has something she'd like to add. Congratulations.
Again, Alejandro, congratulations. I just wanted to talk about the fact that this project really worked across scales, and it's a big challenge to consider the brief that was put before you all. But really, and actually, if we can stay on this slide for a moment, the one before, working from and really considering a global context to a regional one to a localized one, and how architecture can participate within that, both in terms of its social impact, but also its environmental one, is really difficult. And I think this project, and we really commend this project for operating within this context, but also for not needing to solve it, but to acknowledge that the conversation needs to happen, but really representing that both in text, but in the graphics. It was a really strong proposal that considered and operated along these different scales.
Al? Thanks, Marlon. Congratulations, Alejandro. We were really struck by the combination of lyricism and precision of the drawings and the techniques used to describe this project, and the sort of intellectual conceptual underpinnings as Rashida has described. And I think all that it did was just beautifully characterized by Marlon's comments. I guess I'd add that I think what I really appreciate is a kind of the exploration that's embedded in this project, in the architecture, but also in the way you described it, in which you're looking at different historical economies and social systems, and the challenges that exist, and how those systems have affected us and will. The historic sort of extractive economies that were global in nature, even back in the 18th century when New Bedford was founded, moving into contemporary economies, which putatively are sustainable, wind farming, but recognizing that the material expenditures and impacts of those things can only be dealt with through the kinds of experimentation that your building allows, and the promotion of these artifacts as future reusable products. And I think that's really important. And I particularly love looking at any of these drawings, your use of these very familiar large scale, almost architectural scale pieces of equipment, modes of transport, systems of energy generation that become almost like a placeholder benchmark for societies and the technosphere of human activity, as all those artifacts and residues that we really have to address. So this was historic in its thinking, contemporary in its thinking, and very future-proofing in its thinking and its execution of the project. So again, congratulations.
It's Lisa Gray. I'd like to thank all the participants and congratulate all of you. We had many submissions to look through, which we've done over the past weeks, and then again together today, a long day as a jury. And this was a really tough call for us to make. I thank you, Alan, and I thank you all and the studio professors for engaging with the brief that we put in front of you. We recognize that we were asking you to think at every scale, at the planetary scale, down to the neighborhood scale and the technical scale of building assembly. And beyond architecture, we also know that this brief was engaging huge issues of the economy, of social interaction, of city development, of reuse and recycling and engagement with trash. And so this is all a tall order, and everybody who submitted is an architecture student. So really, we've been asking you to put on a lot of hats at one time to do these projects. And actually, I think we all feel that that is what architecture is. The ability to think across all kinds of behaviors to arrive then at design proposals and eventually implementations that advance the world, and in this case are grappling with the climate crisis through architecture. As Alan said at the opening, we feel very strongly that as you go forward in your careers as architects, taking account of and really responsibility for the materials that you call upon, the sites that you engage, the communities that you engage is part of your architectural brief. And the projects that we've recognized here today, the 4 of them, it's notable to us the huge range of solutions that were presented, which is characteristic actually of all 65 or so submissions. But I think that's emblematic of the fact that the topic at hand doesn't have one solution and is a series of considerations that need to be examined locally in local places by people familiar with those places. So we love that we have a project in Hawaii. We have a project in New Bedford. We have the project in Norway. And yes, exactly. And it's just, it's really heartening as people in sort of, I guess, in the middle second half of our careers as practicing architects to see the creativity and vision and passion with which you all engage this project. So just want to congratulate all of you and thank you for your hard, good work and your thoughts and your deep thinking on this incredibly important topic that is at the center really of how we engage with the built environment. So I'd also like to thank the whole Lyceum team for putting this all together. This is a huge lift. There's a lot of information to disseminate and then information to collect. Alan and I were extremely honored to be asked to chair this jury and to propose the brief. We're excited to hear what the students do with the travel funds that you're given. We'd love to see your drawings as they come back. And we just think it's a terrific opportunity to fund exploration across the world as you become architects. So going and visiting these places is essential and also an enormous privilege. And we were very excited by the writing about the proposed travel plans that we got to read. So it's a great program. The Lyceum is to be commended for continuing it over these nearly 4 decades. And we've been very, very happy to engage with it this year. Congratulations to all.